I'm back again, Mr. President, to try to keep the National Flood Insurance Program from expiring. I will be the first to concede that America needs a national flood insurance program that looks like we designed it on purpose. What we have now does not look like that. To call it imperfect is an understatement. But the only thing worse than having what we have right now is to not have a national flood insurance program at all. The fact of the matter is that for all practical purposes, people who are at risk for flooding cannot buy flood insurance from the private markets, which means they can't buy a home, which means their mortgages would be foreclosed upon. That's why we have a national flood insurance program. Should we improve it? Yes. I've been trying for 7 years. We need to keep trying, but we're not going to get it done over the next couple of days. I believe government's going to shut down tomorrow, or at least Saturday, rather. I hope not, but I believe it is. And if it does, the National Flood Insurance Program will be shut down. I don't want to scare people half to death. It doesn't mean that FEMA will stop, which runs the NFIP, will stop paying claims. But it will shut down commerce, if nothing else, because FEMA can't issue new policies. And again, I realize it's not perfect, but we are in hurricane season. Let me say that again. We are in hurricane season. Is this important to my state? You bet. But it's not just important to my state. It's important to every single coastal state. And that's why I would like to see us extend this program for a very, very short period of time. My bill is a clean extension. It doesn't make any changes to the program. I wish I had the authority to make changes, but I don't. This bill will just extend what we have now, imperfect as it may be. And Lord knows it's imperfect. Through December 31, 2023. That will give us some additional time to design a program that looks like somebody designed it on purpose. So, Mr. President, for that reason I ask unanimous consent. Did I mention, Mr. President, that my state is in the middle of hurricane season? Let me say that again. And so is every coastal state. And we're going to shut down the National Flood Insurance Program in the middle of hurricane season? The United States Senate? What planet did we just parachute in from? For that reason, Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to the immediate consideration of my bill, S-2968. It's at the desk. I further ask that the bill be considered read a third time and passed, and that the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table.
Is there objection?
Mr. President,
The senator from Kentucky.
reserving the right to object, we can today renew the National Flood Program and reform it. All it takes is for the senators assembled here not to object to the reforms. I think that flood insurance provided by the taxpayer, subsidized by the taxpayer, shouldn't be for rich people and shouldn't be for their vacation home or their beach homes. Government's got no business, insuring rich people and their second homes. So I have some proposals to reform the system. We're being asked, though, to extend the flood program without any reforms to protect the taxpayers. Like many federal programs, the flood insurance is well-intentioned, but it very well may be the best real-life example of a moral hazard. The program covers over 5 million policyholders and provides over $1 trillion in coverage. We're told that the program is funded through insurance premiums, but charging well below the market price of insurance and capping how much these rates can rise inevitably leads to shortfalls. A 2014 report by the Government Accountability Office found that the flood program collected as much as $17 billion fewer in premiums than what the market would have dictated. So when the program inevitably found itself in need of money, in theory, it borrowed that money from the taxpayers. Not that the taxpayers had any choice in the matter. They took it as they often are. They were on the hook, regardless of whether they wanted to be or not. Just a few years ago, the flood program owed over $30 billion to the taxpayers. Congress later canceled $16 billion in debt, but the flood program has not made any further repayment to the taxpayers and now stands at over $20 billion in debt. In short, it's a subsidy, it's a gift. It's the taxpayer giving people who have homes along the coast subsidized rates, and we all have to pay for it. Now, you might say, well, maybe some poor people have no place to go. The government has a role in that. But a lot of these homes are people's second homes. I say we should limit the insurance to houses under a certain amount, people with modest homes. Some guy's got a $5 million mansion on the coast of Florida should not get his insurance through the government. We shouldn't all have to pay for the insurance for somebody that's got a $5 million home. The taxpayers are expected to cough up money whenever the program needs it, but the program doesn't seem to be in a hurry to pay the taxpayer back. But perhaps the greatest insult to the taxpayer is the lack of true limits on the delinquent program. There are no limits on how many claims that can be filed and how much money can be received by a policyholder. Rather than encourage people to leave flood-prone areas, it encourages people to stay and rebuild. And in thousands of instances, the program encourages people to rebuild and rebuild and rebuild. According to the Pew Charitable Trust, over 150,000 properties have been rebuilt over and over again. In fact, 25 to 30% of flood program claims are made by policyholders whose properties flood time and again. There's no learning curve here. The government provides you something for a subsidy, and you got your beach home, and it keeps getting flooded. You just keep building it if the government will pay for it. Have Uncle Sam pay for it. Have your neighbors pay for it. Over 2,000 properties have flooded more than 10 times. They don't move. They just keep rebuilding in an area that's a flood zone. One home in Bachelor, Louisiana flooded 40 times and received a total of $428,000 in flood payments. It would have been cheaper to buy them a new home in a neighborhood that doesn't flood. Can you imagine having to withstand the ordeal of your home flooding 10, 20, 40 times? Well, the taxpayer doesn't have to imagine paying for it because they're stuck with the bill. Adding insult to injury, the Congressional Budget Office found that the flood program tends to benefit the wealthy, and that 23% of subsidized coastal properties were not even the policy owner's first house. We're talking about vacation houses that average ordinary people who are suffering to go to the grocery store are having to pay for the insurance for some guy's vacation home. Yes, it's true, the government forces the taxpayer to rebuild the summer homes of the rich. In fact, sometimes it seems that the flood program caters directly to the wealthy. Nearly 80% of these flood policies are located in counties that rank with the top 20% of income. Enough is enough. It is an insult to rob from the taxpayer to give to the wealthy. That is why I offer an amendment that would require the flood program to cover only primary residences, no vacation houses, and establish a cap so that only modestly priced houses would be in it. I agree that there's a disruption. If it ends immediately, there'll be a disruption. We can have an interim. My offer today, if accepted, if not objected to, would be, today we fix this. We can stand right here today and fix this if there is no objection. We will continue the program only for primary residences, only under a certain amount, and it would continue. We'd finally reform it. Long-awaited reform that people have wanted for years could happen today if there is no objection. So therefore, I ask the Senator to modify his request so that the Paul amendment at the desk be considered and agreed to. the bill as amended be considered read a third time and passed, and that the motions to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table.
Does the senator from Louisiana so modify his request?
Reserving the right to object, Mr. President. Maybe the homes that my good friend Senator Paul is describing are homes in Kentucky, but they're not homes in Louisiana. The homes in Louisiana that need flood insurance are not mansions. These are homes of working people. These are modest homes being paid for by people who get up every day, go to work, obey the law, pay their taxes, and try to do the right thing by their kids. I don't know about the millionaires that Senator Paul is talking about. Again, maybe they're in Kentucky, but they're not in Louisiana. My coast is a working coast. Point two, what Senator Paul proposes is to limit flood insurance to $250,000. The median sales price of a home in America today is $430,300. Now, there are a lot of reasons for that. One of the reasons for that is President Biden's inflation. But those are the facts. In Louisville, Kentucky, the median sales price is $271,000. In Dallas, Texas, it's $389,000. In Miami, it's $605,000. Why do you want to fool the American people? Why do you want to reform a flood insurance program that is going to deny flood insurance? Do some people own second homes? Yes. I thought Republicans weren't supposed to penalize success in America. I thought our position was that if you worked hard and accumulated wealth, first, you should get to keep most of it. Why? Because you earned it. And second, we should applaud success in America. If you earn enough to buy a second home, we shouldn't discourage that. The third reason I cannot agree to my friend Senator Paul's suggestion is because he knows as well as I do that many of us have worked together to try to reform the flood insurance program. We haven't reached consensus yet. We're going to keep working. But if I agree to Senator Paul's suggestion today, both he and I will be selling out our colleagues who would not agree to these changes. And they're not here right now. Now, the easy thing for me to do is to accept Rand's proposal. But I don't play that way. I'm not going to do it without giving every member of this Senate, which would like input into Senator Paul's suggestions, the chance to object as well. I don't play it that way. And for that reason, I object.
The objection is heard. Is there objection to the original request?
Reserving the right to object. The statistics really do tell the story. 23% of all homes that are insured under this program, whether they're in Louisiana or any other coastal state, are second homes or vacation homes. I would be perfectly willing to negotiate what the actual price of the home is that can be in this situation, and I would offer to modify the amendment from $250,000 to $350,000 to allow more homes to be in. But saying that the median is $433,000, well, the limit right now is infinite. There is no limit. You can have a $5 million vacation home and the government's going to subsidize it. Now, if we don't subsidize someone's house, does that mean we're discouraged or thinking people who have wealth or have second homes? No, this has nothing to do with that. It's just saying the taxpayer shouldn't subsidize rich people. But the thing is the reform will be objected to today, and there will not be any reform to this program, and these programs go on year after year because no one will bring to light what is actually happening here. If you were to ask the American people today, do you think we should be subsidizing flood insurance for people's beach house? I think they'd say no. Buy your own damn insurance if you have a beach house. The government shouldn't be paying for it. So I object.
The objection is heard.
Mr. President.
Senator from Louisiana.
Mr. President, I appreciate my colleague, Senator Paul, and his comments. And I, like him, would like to continue to work with our colleagues to reform this program. But when reality calls, you shouldn't hang up. And that's what we've done here today. Because this government's going to shut down. I hope I'm wrong. God, I hope I'm wrong. But I think this government is going to shut down midnight, Sunday night. And the National Flood Insurance Program is going to shut down with it. Right smack dab in the middle of hurricane season. I thought the first role of government, I thought this is what Republicans believed. I thought this is what libertarians believed. The first role of government is to protect people and property. And all the United States Senate has done today is expose ordinary Americans, not millionaires, ordinary Americans who live in modest homes, who get up every day, I'm going to say it again, and go to work and obey the law and pay their taxes and try to do the right thing by their kids, and whose home is their biggest asset. And we're going to tell them it's okay. Even though you can't buy the flood insurance from a private provider, the government is going to stop you from buying it from the National Flood Insurance Program right in the middle of hurricane season. That's not what this country's all about. All my bill would have done, and I'll be back, just like the Terminator. I'll be back. All my bill would do would be to take the current program. I know it looks like the current program, I will concede, I agree with Rand. The current program looks like somebody knocked over a urine sample. It's that bad. But we need to work to improve it. But in the meantime, we do not need to allow it to expire.